Welcome to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast, where we help ambitious W-2 employees who want to leave their job in the next 12 months, earn $1 million per year, drive their dream car, pursue their passions, and take control of their life. We'll actually teach you by interviewing people who have replaced their W-2 income through the proven business model of wholesaling real estate, a way to earn big checks by finding discounted real estate and passing it off to an investor who has money and can give you a $25,000 finder's fee for finding the deal. We're going to give you 2 weekly interviews plus one expert-led masterclass in front of a live Q&A audience of the DealMachine community, people who are trying to get this journey done themselves. My co-host is Ryan Haywood, whose sales job was cut when his commissions were cut in 2019, so he quit. And his wife was pregnant at the time, so he actually took a 14-day wholesaling challenge and made $8,500 and has gone on to do 400 deals since then in St. Joseph, Missouri. I'm David Lecco, and I created a process for finding off-market deals that has helped people close 10,000 deals in all 50 states, which turned into the software platform DealMachine. Hey guys, welcome back to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. If you're wanting to quit a job you hate and build a life you love, this podcast helps you do that through the proven business model of wholesaling real estate. We've got a special guest, Greg Helbeck, who's actually successfully gone from a broke college student to making $5,000 to doing over 150 deals since 2016. So stick around. You're going to learn a lot on how to get started yourself. If you've gotten any value from this podcast, drop us a review and make sure you're subscribed.
The DealMachine REI Podcast. Everything you need to know to get started in real estate investing.
Greg, welcome to the show. And how did you make that initial $5,000 when you were a broke college kid in your 20s?
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. I appreciate it. So the way that first deal went down was like months and months of putting out bandit signs, which are those little signs on the street you see that say like sell your house for cash. I was 20 years old, I didn't have any cash to buy the house, so I knew I had to wholesale it. But put out those signs for a while, and I had a lady call me. Her name was Cheryl. And it was on 26 Glenwood in Poughkeepsie, New York, New York is a really tough market if people are listening outside of that area. And she had a property. Her daughter was living there. There was I think a boyfriend living in there too. And it was a little bit of not a dicey neighborhood, but the property was beat up and she just didn't want to put it on the market. I didn't know what I was doing. So I basically went to my mentor, Dave Brown. And I was like, hey man, I think I have a deal. She wants to sell this thing kind of on the cheap. And, he's like, yep, I think this is a deal. So we made her an offer. She accepted it, signed a contract. Dave put the deposit down because I had no money. Because in New York, you have to put real deposits down.
Yeah. So the other states, you don't have to put any deposits at all.
Oh yeah. No, New York, you have to put sometimes 10% down. So if you're buying a house for $300K, it's 30 racks.
Yes.
It's crazy. So he put the deposit down, and then, this was 2016, I think. And yeah, he found a buyer, his buddy, who was a contractor, for a $10,000 assignment fee, which when you have no overhead in your business, that's all the money in the world. And now if we do that, it just literally pays the bills. So it's funny how things change. But yeah, we made 10K, split it 50-50. I remember I was living with my parents and he put the check in the mail. And I remember it was a rainy Tuesday and that check showed up in the mailbox. And I walked into my parents. I was like, hey, this real estate thing works. It took me a bunch of months, but after that deal, I had that belief in my brain, and it started to slowly get easier over time. It certainly hasn't been all up.
Right. I love that you showed your family that check.
I was going to say, how did your family respond when you showed them the check?
That's a good question. They knew that I was serious about the business, but they had they're not entrepreneurs, and no one in my family was an entrepreneur, and I kind of fell into it by accident. So they supported me, but they had nothing to really say to me. They weren't negatively discouraging me, but they were you seem to be working hard. Hopefully this works out sometime. And then when I came back with the check after, this is at least 7 months, right? A long time ago, they were like, oh wow, that actually worked. And then the next deal happened, and the next deal happened, and then it started to snowball. But yeah,
how did you keep showing them the check?
What?
Did you keep showing them the checks everyone?
The first couple, I just wanted to show them this was a serious thing, because they would see me basically working for free, right? For whoever knows how long. out at 10 o'clock at night, putting signs out, handwriting letters. Like there's a picture of me on my Instagram. I'm like laying in a pile of direct mail that like hand wrote. So they saw the effort, but after some time and they saw a couple properties get done, they were like, oh wow, like this actually like might be something he could do. And then, kind of go from there.
It's fun.
If you go to a family reunion and you said, I'm wholesaling real estate, they're going to gloss over. So could you explain in like a layman's terms, how would you describe wholesaling real estate to somebody in terms of what it is?
Yeah. So you're just talking about like the strategy of wholesaling, not like being a full-time investor, right?
Yeah. What is wholesaling real estate?
Wholesaling real estate is simply when you market direct to seller for the most part. I would avoid doing this on the MLS because it's a waste of time usually. You market direct to seller, you drive for dollars, you run ads,
Hold on, what is driving for dollars? Like I don't know anything.
You get in your car and you drive around all the neighborhoods in your local area and you look for properties that could use some work, whether they're vacant or maybe they're not vacant, but they look beat up, and you write the address down. And I would actually put it into like a Google sheet or use a thing called DealMachine, which is a really awesome tool that has a bunch of utility. And you put the properties into this system like DealMachine or even a spreadsheet if you can't afford that. And you research the owners. I would do more research, make sure that like it's not like a bank-owned property or,
Research just means like look up who owns it.
Yeah, see who owns it, and then call the seller and say, hey, I want to buy your property. Would you consider? And it might be a good lead because like you see the house is distressed or whatever, or it's physically damaged.
Why does that make it a good lead?
What's up?
Why does that make it a good lead?
Because at the end of the day in this business, you're a problem solver, and if you find a property that physically needs work and you validated that with your own eyes, like looking at it, like it's going to be a little bit easier to like negotiate a deal that is going to work for the seller and for you because that property is going to need work. You're not making an offer on a $10 million house in Beverly Hills that, doesn't need any work. You're physically going out and finding these distressed properties. And then when you call the owner, like generally, like you're going to have to make a lot of calls, but there's going to be a potential problem you can solve because there's a reason the property's vacant. Oh, it's vacant because they don't know how to take it through probate, or it's vacant because, whatever, there was a divorce and they just let the property go. So usually if the property is vacant, there's a reason it's actually vacant, right? And it's a problem you can potentially solve, and you can hopefully make a win-win scenario with the seller. So wholesaling houses is basically going out and, marketing and getting leads, getting sellers to accept your offer, signing contracts, and then instead of closing on the property and like buying the house, you assign your contract to another investor for an assignment fee. And the assignment fee could be anywhere from $2,000 all the way up to, I have friends who've made $200,000, right? So obviously you're not
$200,000 for just finding a rundown house.
Assignment. Oh yeah, I have buddies who've done it. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh wow.
This isn't like, I'm on the West Coast and the East Coast, so like this market the markets I'm in are not normal. But yeah, no, I've seen 200K wholesale deals. I've never done one yet, but yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So why did you decide to become a wholesaler instead of just like being a real estate agent, for example?
It's an interesting question. I went to a seminar, and the seminar just talked about wholesaling. Like my buddy got a postcard in the mail, ironically, which I do like tens of thousands of those now, about like a real estate wholesaling seminar. And when I went to the seminar, like I was 20, and I'm like, they were making it seem so easy. So I thought it was. And they were like, you can just go find these deals and you could use someone else's money to buy it, and you could make like $10,000, $20,000 checks. And I was just like, man, that seems like so simple. And it just resonated with me. And I just feel like my personality, like it was something that I wasn't going to be like resistant to do. Like I had never had an issue like talking to people and like, communicating. And then as I started to listen to more content, like I would hear other people have success, and it just seemed like a vehicle that if you gave it time and consistency, it would ultimately work out, right? And it was not easy to believe that when you're starting and you have no track record, but when you give it an honest effort for a year and a half and you make a couple deals happen, you see the possibility. And then, that's changed my life completely. Like that business, it's crazy. Like
start believing in it after you get one done.
Yeah.
You get one or two deals under it and you're like, oh man, this can be amazing.
Yeah.
And then you get hungry and you just keep doing it.
Let me just tell you one quick thing, because this is maybe where people could resonate. So before I got into this business, like I said, I was a young kid, you know what I mean? And I'm still not that old. But I had a lifeguarding job. I delivered pizzas. I worked for my dad's buddy, like flooring business. And I made decent money at those jobs, like for like how, you know what I mean? Like I made decent money, but I remember like I just would always have to go to work and I'd make money, right? And like that was like that was how it worked. Like you got to show up to work, you get paid, you know, especially the lifeguarding job. I was always like super bored sitting there, like whatever. And then I remember when I did my first real estate deal and it actually was like successful. I still needed to put in time to make that money, but the income that was earned was not directly tied to the time to a certain extent. So that really just kind of changed the way I thought about how money works. Not saying I know everything about it, but like it really opened my eyes up like, oh, wow, I put this effort in and made this deal. And now I made like whatever, X amount of tens of thousands of dollars. And it just kind of like was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I never really thought like I wasn't raised like that. Like, but it just got me to see like, oh, wow, like you can earn income through selling stuff because wholesaling is just sales and marketing. And that's what really kind of made me realize like if I can just get good at the things that got this, I can build a real business out of this. And that's what's happened over the last 7 years.
Gotcha. So yeah, typically you were making money when you went into work, and
Yes.
this gave you more flexibility about when you worked. You could earn more
Correct.
money for that, and you could see a pathway of how you could continue to grow that income without growing the amount of time that you would have to spend on it.
Yeah, like you had a little bit more leverage on your time. Like wholesaling is still an active business, so like there's still like actual effort that has to be happen. But like when I was a lifeguard, for example, in high school, if I didn't show up to that pool, like there was no money, right? But when I showed up to the pool, I'd get paid. And when I first started the wholesaling stuff, I mean, I didn't make any money for 9 months, right? So I basically paid to work, if you think about it, because I was spending some money on marketing, like whatever. But then when I actually made the deal happen, if you looked at the first deal and the return on my time, it was horrendous. But then every deal you do gives you more experience, and then it just makes it easier to do the next one because you have that experience and you understand a little bit more. So like it's like an exponential thing. But that was like, I remember I had that like thought. I was like, wow, like I just made like X. It was like $5,000 on the first one because like it was a JV deal. But I'm like, I just made $5,000 by putting a deal together, and like I've never done that before. Like that was never something that it was like I was
Right,
never
out of thin air.
sort of yeah, without any money. It was like super crazy. You see those like scam real estate like infomercials, and you're like, oh, they're actually kind of right. Think about it. Like it's kind of cheesy, but it's like they're actually yeah.
Okay, so that guy, he put the earnest money down. Normally in the other 49 states, you could put like $100 earnest money down, or a very small amount. But in New York, that's kind of an outlier. So awesome job JVing with somebody who had that money. Did your JV partner in this deal, did he actually also help find the buyer?
He did everything. I found the deal and I found the seller and made the offer, and then he did everything else. So I basically stepped out of the way. He locked it up in his own company. Like I trust him. I still wholesale him houses to this day, which is ironic. Like we're doing a deal with him in Queens right now. We sold him a property in Warwick, New York, which is a great area. So it's been a long-term relationship with Dave. But yeah, he did everything. Found the buyer, did the contract, did all the logistics, all the emails.
Cool.
And then when the deal closed, he cut me half the check and was like, for him, it's a win-win. It's like, okay,
Right.
he just got a deal on his lap from
Correct.
someone. Like I do JV deals with investors all the time. And it's like, they're like, oh, why do you take my phone call? I'm like, well, number one, I want to help. And number two, it's like, this is a property that I never had to go out and find. And, you know, if you needed me to fund the deal or you needed me to like just find a buyer, like it's really valuable for me too. So like people don't realize like, you know, that's a league you weren't going to get on your own. So
Totally.
I just encourage people to JV in the beginning.
Remind me how you found this particular JV partner?
So I Googled sell my house cash, like New York back in 2016. His website was number one.
So that's what I tell everyone to do.
There we go.
Yeah, if you don't know what to do once you have a deal. Most people, I thought people were scared of getting on cold calls and hearing rejection. But actually, through my own experience, I know they're more afraid of somebody saying yes and then them not knowing what to do. So a great way to do that is Google who's advertising sell my house fast and bring this opportunity to them. And I love that you did exactly that.
You just got to be cool about it too. You can't be a schnitzel. Like I see a lot of like wholesalers, they don't know what to say. And they're like, well, like, it's just like, hey, like if I have a deal, can I reach out to you? We can JV it. Like if you say something direct like that, anyone will say yes. But if they're like, what criteria are you looking for? Like, it's just, you sound like a schmuck doing that.
If you say what criteria are you looking for? Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to bother because, you're just a schnitzel. Like you said, This was my biggest problem with Rich Dad Poor Dad, which literally everyone's read and got inspired by. And they say you need a team that's like an accountant and an attorney. And I'm like, yo, you don't need any of those people. If you talk to an accountant and attorney, first of all, you don't have any type of business for them to help you with. And so like, what the heck are you going to ask them? Build revenue first and then go back and get that in order, right? I don't understand why.
Make offers. If you want to make money in this business, if you just make offers and get good at that, like you do not have to worry about doing deals. I say this to everybody, like new person will reach out to me and I'll follow up with them or whatever. And I'll say like, listen, how many offers did you make this week? And they're like, none. I'm like, well, there's your problem right there. It's like, obviously not as easy as just like, you got to obviously be formulaic about it. But like, if you made 2 or 3 off market offers a day, it would be very hard to not do a deal in like 2 months. It would be almost impossible.
Yeah.
You just think about it, it's just math. You know what I mean?
Please open up your podcast app right now and leave us a review and let us know what you thought of this episode. It means so much because the reviews help us get in front of more people. And the more people we can get in front of, the more we can help them achieve financial freedom. And we also get more energy to put more content out like this to help you. So by leaving us a review, it will give you more content to come to help you along in your journey. Thank you so much.
But then it's like, how do you get
The reason people don't do well are typically because of their, in my opinion, their focus.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't get a deal. Well, how many postcards did you send out? 100. Well, you already know that that's way less than you need to do. So go do more. You know, how many cold calls did you make? 10. Well, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. You're going to get out what you put in. So if you want a deal, go get a deal.
Right.
It's going to be out there.
Greg, so put the effort in and you got to understand what the benchmark is of like realistic expectations. And if you can hit that, you know, and then you're still not hitting your goals, then it's like, okay, maybe there's something you can tweak. Maybe it's your skills, but you got to do the standard or else you're not going to get the results you want.
Yeah. Right. You got to know what to fix.
Exactly.
If there's no, how many postcards did you send? How many cold calls? If everything is 0, then you know what to fix. If things are like, well, I did 250 postcards and 200 phone calls and I got nothing out of it, that tells you something. That gives you data of what you need to adjust. You can't adjust anything if you're not doing anything.
Dude, we literally have to spend 6 G's on direct mail to get a deal, which is great because we make way more than that. But it's like, that's our market. Like if you're not spending 6K to get a deal, like you're not even in the ballpark. Like it's just, that's the reality of our area. So
and when you say your area, it's because it's an expensive area. I've typically used, right? If the price of the homes are higher, you're going to have to spend more on marketing to get those deals. And you're in San Diego and New York, right outside of New York City, right? The Hudson Valley.
Hudson Valley. It's super tight over there. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're in the Midwest, the cost of getting a deal would probably be like $3,000 in marketing, for example.
Yeah.
But you might not make as much per deal. So it kind of is a linear relationship with how much you have to spend versus how much you could make on a deal is what I've noticed.
100%. I mean, if in our area, like the market's changed a little bit, but like before the market dropped a little bit, like we were making 30, 40K wholesales and it wasn't like unreasonable because like, it's just, that's the numbers. Like if the house is worth 550 fixed up, like to wholesale that for 35K, it's like, that's not that hard. Cause it's not like, it's a lot of money, but like the percentage of the house value, it's not like that crazy. But if you're trying to wholesale a house that's worth 150 fixed up to make 30 racks, like you got to basically steal that house. Right. So it's all just relative to the market.
So let me ask you this. Real estate's allowed you to become a millionaire and you've actually done more than one deal, right? So like, how do you typically get all these deals that you've gotten since 2016?
Like marketing wise?
Yes, sir.
So pay-per-click, direct mail to like niche lists. That's a key. SEO, pay-per-lead channels. I mean, we're doing everything except for TV and radio. Text message marketing. Mm-hmm. We're doing deep like research skip tracing, I call it, is like we find like a really hairy property and then like we'll do research around. Like I just found one in San Diego last week. Like it's vacant, it's got back taxes, the owner lives out of state. Like, so we'll like find these types of prospects and then we'll go like research and see who the sellers are. And then we'll just say like, hey, like, would you ever want to sell that house? And we know like the odds of them saying yes are a little higher because it's a distressed property. But it's like, you know, all those things I just mentioned, mostly I would say consistently wise, like direct mail, because it's something I know that if I spend a certain amount of money, it's almost guaranteed to produce an ROI, like almost guaranteed. Like it's not perfect. Like Google's pretty good too, but direct mail is more consistent because I know I'm going to get a certain amount of calls And a certain amount of those calls are going to turn into leads, and then, yada, yada, yada. We're going to make it all the way down to the offers and deals. So direct mail is my biggest channel, followed with pay-per-click, I'd say.
Okay. Yeah. So pay-per-click is like when people search, how do I sell my house fast in this place? You show up as an ad in Google. It's like, sell your house fast. And they click and get on your webpage and submit a form. For the direct mail, what are the niche lists that you guys like to use?
So we'll hit tax delinquent. We'll hit the probate list. We'll hit the what's the unknown equity list is a golden list, because that's like people who've owned their house for a long time. Usually it's like a kind of like an absentee owner. What's another good list? We'll hit lien list is a good list. Like you can go on PropStream or DealMachine, I'm sure, and you could just see like who has a lien on their property. Usually it's like a grass lien or something like that. So there's some sort of distress there. What's another list that we've done some big rips? So, and like another niche list I would say is like, it's like if you stack the list, like an absentee owner, and then like you have like high equity. So it's kind of like the two there. Like it's not really, it's more of a broader list, but like we've done some big clips off of like people who've owned their house for a long time, which is a huge thing if you're going to pull a broad list. And then like they don't live there because like it's either vacant or it's like a tenant in there. So it's just easier to have a conversation. Like they're not emotionally attached to that house for the most part. It's like, oh, I own this thing. I live in New Jersey. The house is in New York. And like, I don't want to be bothered with this thing. And I've owned it since 1995. So I've owned it for 27 years.
Gotcha.
So those are the lists that we're seeing a lot of success from. I would say recently it's been a lot of tax delinquent lists. It's been solid.
Gotcha. I'm glad those lists are working out well for you. And direct mail is nice because I know you use texting too, but there's not like a spam filter on direct mail. It always gets to where it's going.
Always gets to where.
Sometimes on texting or emails, those emails or texts might not even reach the person. And on texting, you don't even know it.
Yeah, 100%. Mail is consistent. It'll never go out of business. The postage rates will keep going up, but mail will still work.
So you weren't going on a lot of trips in college when you were broke, I'm guessing.
No.
And I know you recently went to Japan and Dubai.
Yeah.
Are those kind of first time trips for you? Like had you taken trips before growing up like that?
Never like that. Jesus. I mean, we'd go on family vacations, which is awesome, but I never really went. I'm trying to think. I think I went out of the country maybe 4 times before I got involved in real estate, like Dominican Republic for a vacation, Canada for hockey, Bahamas on a cruise. But once I started to, have the consistency, like I said, took a long time. I didn't get here overnight, obviously. I wanted to start to travel more, especially because I like virtualized the business where I don't need to physically be anywhere. Like I could work like this, like do podcasts and whatever, take calls. So my first big ass trip I went on was actually last year was Singapore. I went over to Asia, first time going to Asia, and went over there. It's a crazy country. It's awesome. So I did that. That opened my eyes up to travel. And then after I got done with that, I went to, what was that? The next trip was Dubai this year. Yeah, I went to Dubai with my buddy.
Yeah.
And went there for like a week, less than a week. And then after that, I'm like, I want to see another country. And then went to Japan. And I think the thing I realized was that, like, if you have the business, like obviously I work a lot in the business. It's not easy. This is not like everything is like perfect every time. But when you can get the business in a certain spot where it's virtual, right? You don't need to physically be at appointments or whatever. You can take a trip like that, and worst case scenario, if you have to work for a couple hours, doesn't matter. You could be in Japan, you could be in San Diego, you could be in Minneapolis. It's your business is not directly tied to your location. That's something that I really wanted when I started the business, and it took me a couple of years to get to. It actually took me like 3 years to get to that point, to where it was like physically I didn't need to be there. Right, that was like a big thing for me when I started.
That's amazing. Awesome. You're able to successfully leverage your time through a business like that. That's the whole point. But it's hard to achieve, right? People get caught up working in the business themselves so much and working themselves to death. I'm glad you've been able to free your time up and take these awesome trips.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to taking many more. I got a whole list of stuff.
Yeah. Well, it hasn't all been roses. You actually lost something on a commercial property, I heard, right?
Oh, dude. God damn it. That was like the worst. Yeah, so I'll give you the background on that one. So long story short, I started wholesaling, and then I saved some money up, and then I started like actually flipping properties, which I still do to this day. And I have a lot of experience doing that as well, and like rentals and stuff like that. So I didn't just stay a wholesaler. I started to like get into more like exit strategies. And I ran into this commercial property. I had a goal a couple of years ago, was like to do a commercial deal because everyone was talking about it online. And I bought this property. It was 1 storefront and 3 apartment units. And it was super old, had a bunch of problems. I got a good deal on it though. Like I found it off market from a cold call. And long story short, I mean, the property, the demand for the retail tenant was like non-existent because of the location. So I had no renter who wanted to rent from me. And then the apartments, I rehabbed them, or most of them. But like the building was so old, it had so many problems with it. Like there was always like an issue, and like there was a big problem with the septic, and the tenants got sick, and like I didn't know what to do. Like, oh, dude, it was a mess, dude. And then I felt bad. I gave them all their money back on one of the tenants. I'm like, here's all your money back. Like I felt so bad. And then I mean, like there's not much. Like I had no like I didn't know any of this stuff. Like I literally just had to give the tenant a full refund. And then I had to get like all these tests done with the building. There was nothing wrong with like the air quality or anything like that. It was just like a shit luck. And long story short, my plan was to keep it as a rental. And once I realized I couldn't rent that store out, I was kind of fucked. And I had to basically go, and I don't know if I could curse on the show. If I did, I apologize. But I was like toasted, and I'm like, I had a hard money loan on this thing. And I'm like, I have to sell this property. Like I can't keep this as a rental. So then basically we threw it on the market the first time. Nobody wanted it. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do with this property? Like I had no idea what I was doing. And we lowered the price, and then we filled up 1 more unit. So then there was 2 tenants paying with 1 left. And then we somehow, some way found like this unicorn buyer to make a cash offer. I lost about 5 to 10 G's on that property, and was all said and done with all the interest and stuff I paid.
Gotcha.
And all rehab disaster, but
it's not bad. It could have been a lot worse.
Oh, dude, it could have been a disaster. The worst case scenario on that property was I would have had to pay off the hard money lender in cash, which I could afford, thankfully. And then I would have had like all this money just in this shitty property, like just sitting there.
Dang it.
That was like doomsday. Thank God that didn't happen. But the second worst thing would have had to just refi and leave a bunch of money in that thing. And that would have sucked too. But it was a bad experience, but I learned a lot. So yeah, that mistake again.
It's cost of education.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it was very stressful, man. I felt bad for the tenants too, because I like to be a reasonable landlord, and like they were sick, and like I didn't know what was going on because the building was so old. Like there was just so many things.
Oh yeah. Is the reason why you primarily wholesale to this day because it's just like less risk and you make your money a lot faster?
Yeah. And in my market, we can make such big wholesale fees a lot of the time. Like it's like if I rehab it, like what am I going to make, an extra 15, 20,000 depending on the market?
Right.
But I'll still buy some good deals. Like there's a deal I'm flipping right now where like I could have wholesaled that for probably 25. We're going to make like 60 flipping it. So it's like,
it's worth
these
it.
deals I'll make. Those deals I'll buy.
Double. Yeah. If it's over double, you
yeah.
So tell me, you had a funny story about one of these deals too, 58 Oars Mills.
That was that commercial property.
Yeah. That was it. Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. Every time I drive by that to this day, I just wince. It's at this intersection. It's like right, the property like sticks right on the road. I'm like,
right. Everybody, a lot of these people do say they're like, you got to do commercial because it's way better to have a big piece of a watermelon than a whole grape. You know, a whole grape being like a small thing, like single family home, small. But I love that you're sticking with what you know and what brings you cash quickly. And that's awesome. Which moves us into our guilt-free profit lightning round questions. So the first one I got for you, Greg, is do you time the market, or do you actually buy these deals anytime?
You buy the deals anytime, because if you can fundamentally buy properties at the right number, it doesn't matter what the market's doing. Because if you're buying a house at truly 70 cents on the dollar, no matter what the market is, doesn't matter. You should not time the market.
Yeah. And how many times have people tried to time the market and lost their shirt? I've heard a lot of stories.
Yep. Yeah. Right before the interest rates went up, people got their lunches eaten, bro. They were buying from wholesalers, getting, paying too much, and then the market drops and they lost their shorts.
Great answer. Ryan, you got a question?
Okay. Is wholesaling a sleazy business?
It can be if you don't do it with integrity. So I'll answer that in a pretty direct way. Like, something that we're big on in our company is that we are so transparent and upfront with the seller on what the deal is. Like, you're trading equity for convenience and certainty. If you want the most money, you should list this house. We disclose the shit out of everything. So if the seller decides to take our offer, we can sleep at night. So if you tell the seller their options and they choose to sell you the property at a low price, and they're aware of the fact that they can get more money and they're okay with taking less, I think it's totally cool. I think if you lie to sellers and misrepresent sellers and you are not honest with sellers, especially if you take advantage of old people, not only is it terrible karma, it's going to come back and bite you, but you're going to get yourself in serious trouble. So you got to do the right thing, and you got to think about this like you're buying somebody's house. It's probably the biggest sale they're ever going to make in their life. So you got to treat them with respect, and you got to give them all their options. And if you do that and the seller still wants to sell the property to you and they're aware that they're leaving money on the table, I think there's nothing wrong with it.
Amazing.
Okay. Are there any ethics when answering your side hustle call at your W-2 job?
I think if your objective at the W-2 job is to do whatever, and you're hitting your objectives and your standards, and it's not like hurting you at your regular job, I think it's totally fine. Like if you had to answer a text message from a seller, but you're getting all your work done, like you finished your project on time, like I think it's fine. Especially now with like technology, I don't think there's anything shady about that. Like if somebody that works for me was like starting their own side hustle and they were hitting all their objectives for our company, like I don't care. Like I'm an entrepreneur, right? So like why would I yell at them for doing something that I did when I started? You know?
Yeah.
Right. Pro tip, I'd probably just use your own personal equipment, not any work equipment.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, there you go.
For sure.
Yeah.
You guys, that's the show for today. I want you guys to know about Greg's podcast. He's done 280 episodes. His latest one's on managing rental properties. He's also got one I know you guys are going to love on how he comes up with values in New York the right way, a tricky thing for people who are just starting out. So I love those two topics that you got there. So check out, it's called the Fast Track, the Real Estate Investing Fast Track, by the way, hosted by Greg Helbeck. And also, he's got an Instagram. It's Greg